Hello, and I'm going to teach you how to simplify surds. Surds are numbers that are left in its square root form or its cube root form. This is because they are not integers or fractions. They are therefore irrational numbers. For example, square root of 2 is a surd because it cannot be simplified into an integer or fraction. In decimal form, it can go on forever. As you can see, the square root of 2, if you keyed it into a scientific calculator, you get 1.414213 going on and on recurring. Whereas the square root of 4 is not a surd because square root of 4 is equal to 2. That is an integer, a whole number. When encountering surds, you need to make sure you know your times tables. There's no point encountering surds if you don't know your times tables. If you don't know what 7 times 7 is or 6 times, you're not going to be able to spot. Because if you don't know your times tables, you're not going to know what numbers are factors of which numbers. So, for example, if you saw square root of 60, you're not going to know how to simplify it if you don't only know that the factors of 60 are off. You only know as far as 6 because you don't know any multiples or times tables more than 6. See, especially it's another thing. You wouldn't be able to tell if the square root of 49 is a surd or not because you wouldn't know your 7 times tables. See, someone who knew their times tables could spot that the square root of 49 is not a surd because 7 times 7 is equal to 49, 7 being the integer. But now, if you don't know your times tables, you're not going to be able to spot this. So make sure you know your times tables. Pass it. No, not. I'm not saying know your times tables from 1 to 10. Further on from that, from 1 to 20, from 20 to 40, so on and so forth. Try and push yourself. Then that way you'll know which numbers are factors of which. It'll be like clockwork. It'll be easy. Factors of 60. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12, 15, 20. Easy. 30. It'll come like clockwork for you. Okay. There are rules when it comes to manipulating surds. So when it comes to multiplying surds, the square root of AB together is the same as writing the square root of A multiplied by the square root of B. So this is a rule you would apply when it comes to multiplying surds. The second rule when it comes to manipulating surds, the square root of A over B is the same as the square root of A over the square root of B. These rules will prove useful as we encounter a few questions relating to surds. First question, simplify square root of 200. Let's first write out the question. Square root of 200. Now, again, this is where we can apply the first rule. We know that to make 200, two numbers have to multiply each other by each other to make 200. So 200 would represent the AB. So for you to work out what A is and B is, you just have to know your factors of 200. This is why it's important to know your factors and your multiples. That way you can pinpoint and see, okay, what can go into 200? A various amount of numbers. If you're always stumped with big numbers, if you see an even number, a number ending in 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, and you don't know its factors, always divide by 2. Use this when it comes to simplifying surds and it's a number that you feel you might not know the factors to, and it's an even number. You start with the surd 2 and then you can divide 2 from there, because it has to, for you to, for example, let's say the square root of 94. You don't know its factors, but you know 94 is an even number. So you would do square root of 94 is equal to the square root of 2 multiplied by the square root of 47. And you go on so forth, so on and so forth. So yeah, always safe bet when you're dealing with even numbers, divide by the square root of 2. So here, 200, square root of 200. What goes into 200? What's its factors? Easy, 102. Like I said, divide with 2. It's a safe bet. And it saves you being stumped trying to, figure out, especially during exam time, when you might not have the time to sit and ponder and use your hands and work out what are the factors of 200. So, okay. So, square root of 200 is equal to square root of 2 multiply the square root of 100. Now, this is why it's important, you need to know your multiples. Because the square root of something is a number times by itself. To get that number, it's basically the opposite of squaring a number. So, for example, 2 squared, i.e. 2 to the power of 2, is equal to 4. So when you're working out a square root of a number, you're trying to find out what number is it that times by itself to get that number that's in the square root. So for example, the square root of 4, what you're trying to work out is what number times by itself gets 4. Therefore, that means the only number that times by itself to get 4 is 2. Therefore, the square root of 4 is equal to 2. So for the square root of 100, what number times by itself to get 100? 10. 10 times 10 is equal to 100. So you've worked out the square root of 100. That's equal to 10. So now you write square root of 200 is equal to the square root of 2 square root of 2 multiplied by 10, because 10 is the square root of 100. But you're not done. What do? Because you can't simplify the square root of 2 anymore because it's a surd, you leave it how it is and you multiply the 10 by the square root of 2 to get ten root 2. You do nothing more. That's it. That's your answer. And that's how you simplify the square root of 200. The square root of 200 simplified is 10 root 2. Let's move on to the next question. Square root of 98. Again, important to know your multiples. What goes into 98? What is it? What is its factors? You could divide it by 2 to find out its factors and work with the remainder. So we know 2 goes into 98 because it's an even number. And we know what you multiply by 2 to get 98 is 49. So the square root of 49. Again, this is why it's very important you know your multiples, because again, you could look at 49 and be like, oh, what's its factors? What goes into 49? Now, if you knew your 7 times tables, you could easily spot that square root of 49 is 7. 7 multiplied by itself is equal to 7. And I'm telling you to know your multiples because you might have a surd related question in a non-calculator exam. And you might have a question like this. And if you don't know your multiples, you're not going to be able to use your calculator. So this is why it's important to know your factors and your multiples of numbers. So that when you're encountering exams where it might not involve calculator, or you cannot use a calculator, you can always use your mental maths and your knowledge of factors and multiples to help you out when it comes to surd related questions. So here we can't simplify square root of 2, so we leave it as square root of 2, but we know the square root of 49. What times by itself to get 49? 7. Therefore, your answer is 7 root 2. You're going to encounter harder questions related to surds. This is just the basics. This is just how to simplify surds and just how to utilize the 2 rules, how to manipulate it, how to utilize the square root of AB is equal to the square root of A multiplied by square root of B, and the square root of A over B is the same as the square root of A over square root of B. So here we're going to get to apply the second rule. Simplify the square root of 8 over the square root of 2. Now, if you remember the rule, as I just said, the square root, let's go to the rule. The square root of A over B is the same as square root of A over square root of B. So that means also as well, because they're interchangeable. So the same way how something written like this is written in this format, that it can be written like this format, and the same way how this format can be written like this format. So here, with this question, square root of 8, when simplified, we can rewrite it as square root of 8 over 2. So square root of 8 over 2. What is 8 divided by 2? That's the same as square root of 4. Aha! See where I'm going with this? And what is the square root of 4? It is 2. And so that means, therefore, 2 is basically the square root of 8 over the square root of 2 simplified. And that is how you simplify surds. The next video, I'll teach you how to rationalize the denominator. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.